We're about a minute away from our 5:30 start time. We have one board member we're waiting on. It's running a little bit behind schedule. We are going to pick up the sign-in sheet at 5:35 to give people time after 5:30 to sign in. Good evening. The Madison County Board of Education special session for August 29th, 2023 is in session. Mr. Byrd, would you do the invocation for us, please?
With pleasure. Bow our heads in prayer, please. Dear Heavenly Father, as we sit here in this room discussing the gifts of God, your children, give us an understanding of the many different viewpoints that we're going to hear, and your wisdom in our thoughts and discussion, and your guidance in our decisions for what's best for the children of the Madison County Board of Education. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Cubitt.
Mr. Curry, let me first recognize the people who are with us this evening. Senator Gavan, thank you for joining us. Members of the Madison County Sheriff's Department, we appreciate you being here as well. Our Madison County administration, both local school and district level, appreciate them all being here as well. So with that, sir, I recommend approval of the agenda dated August 29th, 2023.
Second.
A motion and a second. The recommendation for approval of the agenda dated August 29th, 2023. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So item A, update on the Hazel Green High School versus Sparkman High School football game. I know there's 3 board members who have statements. I'm going to start with those statements. Before I make my comments, I'd like to start by having a brief moment of silence for Chase Lozano, a student and football player at Hazel Green High School that tragically lost his life on August 5th, 2023. Thank you. May we continue to keep the Lozano family in our thoughts and prayers. I requested a special meeting to address the situation that occurred at the Friday night football game between Hazel Green High School Trojans and the Sparkman High Senators. Parents and community members, thank you for your patience. I want to thank this board and the district leaders for adjusting their work schedules and other commitments to attend this hastily called meeting. I want to thank the parents and concerned citizens who chose to attend tonight's meeting in person or online. Undoubtedly, you have concerns. We all have concerns. I, along with District 4 Board Member Heath Jones, District 5 Board Member Bill Byrd, attended the game. Other central office leadership and staff attended the game as well. Over the weekend, I and other members of this board have discussed the situation in detail with Superintendent Ken Kubik, Chief of Staff Daniel Evans Jr., and other district leaders in the Madison County Sheriff's Office. In consultation with our board attorney, Cynthia Thompson, in the interest of the public, we've decided to allow a limited open forum for the community members to share concerns, ideas, and solutions. I hope we all share the same goal, to learn from what happened and provide constructive feedback for a better experience in the future. I want to thank the Madison County Sheriff's Office deputies and school resource officers for their focus on keeping our kids and families safe. They responded with deliberate speed and professionalism, and it is to be commended. The Sheriff's Department and the Madison County School System have an outstanding partnership, and I'm proud to know we have wonderful officers and SROs providing coverage at the event. Additional thanks to Dr. Hedden, Mr. Dryford, and their administrative teams for their response to the security incident at the football game. Much appreciation to Coach Wilburn, Coach Watson, and their respective staff to manage players and their emotions as best they could. I also want to thank District Athletic Director Matt Rogers for providing valuable feedback during and after the game's conclusion. The first half of the game went as expected, and we were looking forward to a great second half. All things considered, I believe we made the right decision to call the game. What happened at halftime was embarrassing, upsetting, and dangerous. I saw children crying. I saw parents deeply concerned and very upset. As a parent, I share that with you. What I witnessed should not and cannot be tolerated. I saw fencing damaged. I saw children and adults attempting to escape a chaotic situation. We will create additional protocols to reduce the possibility of this happening again in the future. But if it does, we will use every available tool to discipline individuals that cause disruption of this nature. I want to personally apologize to all the football players, coaches, family, and children that were traumatized by this event. You didn't deserve this. I'm sorry the Sparkman High School girls soccer team championship presentation had their moment soiled by the actions of a few. I don't want to lose sight of the fact it's very possible that our students create this disruption. We know this as parents, but children make mistakes. They also make serious, foolish errors in judgment. It's our responsibility as parents, friends, and leaders in the community to show measured compassion when they fall short. Guide them in the right direction. Show them the errors of in their ways. They deserve our care. They deserve to be held accountable for improper actions, as actions have consequences. This, in part, is how we create a high-quality society of young men and women that extends beyond the classroom and the ball fields. There's been a lot of speculation about the events and what transpired on social media. Some of it indeed is true, while some of the information is false, unverified, and inflammatory. In the days leading up to the game, school administrators at both campuses and district personnel were made aware of social media posts by the students. We were also made aware of an incident at the Jamboree game on August 11th on the campus of Hazel Green High School. The superintendent will provide factual information about the event, the concerns presented leading up to the event, and measures taken prior to the event. We will discuss the event itself, the observations noted, and solutions the district will consider in the coming weeks. Some of these changes will be immediate and implemented at the next available opportunity. Additional security measures will be taken, but for the safety and well-being of players, staff, and attendees, they will not be addressed in a public meeting. As a point of clarity, when we say there were no reports of injuries, this does not mean there were no this means there were no documented reports of injuries to law enforcement and medical professionals who were on site. This by no means is to dismiss or slight comments and feedback we received who personally felt they were injured or traumatized by the event. After we discuss these items, we will permit comments from members of the community to give input to this event. If you would like to speak, please sign in so your voice can be heard, as we have the sign-in sheet. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Our children bring out the best passions in us. I respectfully ask that we keep those passions measured in the spirit of mutual respect, understanding, and to move forward to make this a better place. As I close, let me make one thing perfectly clear. We will not allow fear and irresponsible acts to rob us of our capacity to enjoy watching our sons and daughters live their best lives in the field of play. That concludes my statement. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Madison County School System families. I would like to take this opportunity to address the recent incident that occurred during the Sparkman and Hazel Green High School football game on Friday, August 25th, 2023. I understand the importance of open and transparent communication, and it is my duty as an elected official to provide you with a comprehensive update on this situation. First and foremost, I want to assure the public that the Madison County School System takes events like this very seriously. The well-being and safety of our students, staff, and spectators are always our top priorities. We have been diligently investigating this incident to gather all relevant facts and information. During the week leading up to the game, the Madison County School System was alerted to information regarding a possible threat at Friday's game. The Madison County School System's district leadership, the Madison County Sheriff's Office, as well as the Sparkman and Hazel Green admin were notified of this threat and began investigating these claims and took proactive approach to heighten security at the game. Upon initial assessment, it has become apparent that the disturbance originated from a small group of individuals. I want to emphasize that this incident was isolated and not reflective of the behavior of the majority of the students and community members. Our school district promotes an environment of respect, good character, and sportsmanship, and we will not tolerate any actions that compromise these values. In response to the false accusations and reports circulating on social media and throughout our communities, let me be clear, there were no firearms or weapons used or identified during this incident. There were also no physical altercations or reported injuries to the district during this incident. There was no rushing of the field, which was falsely reported by multiple local media outlets. There was, however, destruction of private property, specifically several sections of fencing surrounding our stadium and a large gate that will have to be replaced or require significant repair. The fabricated disturbance that ensued during the second quarter and at halftime of Friday's game was an embarrassment for our district and is not what we as a community or school district represent. If you want to advocate for our schools and community, then do it in a respectful and factual manner. To address this incident and prevent future occurrences, we have taken immediate steps. Our school administration, in collaboration with our local law enforcement, has initiated a thorough investigation to identify those responsible for instigating this disturbance. We are committed to holding accountable those who engaged in inappropriate behavior or violated our district's code of conduct. I want to personally apologize to our student athletes, our coaches, and parents of both Sparkman and Hazel Green High School. This is not what our Sparkman community stands for, and this type of behavior by our student body and attendees at our athletic events will not be tolerated. Athletic events are supposed to unite our communities together and allow us all an opportunity to show support for our student athletes. That did not occur Friday night, and we must do better going forward as a district. I want to apologize to Coach Sam Tidmore and our varsity girls soccer team, whose championship ring ceremony at halftime was slightly diminished by this fabricated disturbance. I want to congratulate each of you on your accomplishments and let you know how extremely proud we are of each of you. To our valued school resource officers and the Madison County Sheriff's Office, thank you for your courage, your loyalty, and the support that you provide to our Sparkman and Madison County School System family. You are a proud and valued asset to our school community. Additionally, we understand the importance of fostering a positive and safe game day environment for all attendees. We will be implementing enhanced security measures and increasing the presence of school staff and law enforcement officers at future sporting events. These measures aim to ensure the safety and enjoyment of all spectators, and we appreciate your cooperation and understanding as we work towards this objective. Furthermore, we recognize the need for ongoing dialogue and collaboration within our community. We value your voice and encourage you to collaborate alongside of us so that we can collectively work towards creating a safer and more inclusive atmosphere at all school events. In closing, I want to reiterate our commitment to the well-being and safety of our students and community. We deeply regret the disturbance occurred and want to assure you that we are taking appropriate measures to address this situation. By working together as a united community, we will overcome challenges and continue to provide an exceptional educational experience for our students. I look forward to working with my colleagues on the board, our superintendent, and his district leadership to improve our school system going forward. I want to thank you for your understanding, your continued support, and dedication to our school district. We remain steadfast in our commitment to excellence and look forward to a brighter future. Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my statement.
Mr. President, thank you for calling this meeting to discuss the events that occurred during the Hazel Green and Sparkman High School football game. As you stated, we all have concerns about that game and the conduct of a few students. Many students, parents, teachers, and administrators in both communities were stunned by the events that developed at halftime. I want to take some time to review the steps taken by the school board before the game, the impact that misinformation had on fueling the actions and reactions of students attending the game. Earlier in this year, a Hazel Green High School student died in a car accident. All the Sparkman and Hazel Green community shared in the grief for the loss of this young man. Many in the entire Madison County community are joined in prayer for him and his family. The loss of this young man is a sad fact. However, prior to the game, the narrative of his death on some social media platforms became dangerous and insulting. These social media posts were also untrue. The fiction being generated on social media was noted by administrators and was a major consideration in the pregame planning by our school administrators, the school system's athletic directors, the school's SROs, the Madison County Sheriff Department. We were fully aware of the rumors of this happening or that happening at Friday's football game. All contingencies were accounted in planning at every level to minimize the risk to the public. However, we did not account for what I think of as a flash mob situation. Flash mob can occur in large public gatherings in which people perform unusual, seemingly random acts, usually organized by cell phones. The president of the school board, Mr. Curry, Heath Jones, District 4 Representative, myself, were present at the game on Friday night. And I'm going to share some of my experiences that Friday night. On the first half of the game was without incident. But at halftime, a large group of students gathered in the area in front of the concession stand. The marching bands completed their halftime performance, and Coach Tinsmore's state championship Sparkman High School women's soccer team began to line up at the 50-yard line for the presentation of their state championship rings. I heard a noise and multiple people screaming and saw approximately 10 students moving toward the Sparkman stand from the concession area. The crowd moved very slowly and seemed to stop when realized that nothing had happened. Mr. Jones and I completed the ring ceremony for that wonderful soccer team without incident, and shortly afterward, other flash mob actions occurred in the concession stand, and the game was correctly suspended. I checked social media when I went home that evening, and Mr. President, I'd like to review what I read on social media. The football field was stormed by groups of students. Fiction. A gunshot occurred at the game. Fiction. A gun was brought to the game. Fiction. A knife was brought to the game. Fiction. A physical fight occurred at the game. Fiction. Multiple injuries required medical treatment. Fiction. The Madison County first responders at the game handled the situation very professionally, and they need to be commended for their actions on Friday night. Mr. President, we must deal with facts and ignore fictions to prevent this mob action from ever happening again in our stadiums. And Mr. President, I also want to address the idea of risk. Some social media state that we as a board have an obligation to produce a no-risk situation at all school events. I think this is impossible. There is risk every time an athletic team plays because a player can be permanently injured. In fact, these rightly concerned parents took an increased risk to come to this building tonight because it's rush hour, and their risk of an accident is much larger. There is not a situation in our daily life that does not involve risk. Inflammatory posts on social media are a new normal for athletic events. They are unacceptable, they're almost impossible to stop, and it can be very hard to identify the author of the post. If we adopt a policy that social media posts cancels an event, then we will have no games. We will have no concerts, and we will have no plays. And let me make this very plain. Last Friday, not a social media threat, but the flash mob behavior alone caused unacceptably high risk to our students, parents, and guests. There must be changes to reduce this risk to the lowest possible level. Nothing is more important than the safety of our students. I look forward to examining the facts and not the fiction of Friday night. Working with administrators of both schools, our central office staff, the sheriff department, parents, and students, we will improve our security procedures in our athletic events, and future flash mobs will be prevented. I note that our board has always viewed attendance at extracurricular activities as a privilege, not a right. And finally, Mr. President, I want to apologize to the many students, parents, and guests of both the Sparkman community and the Hazel Green community who came just to see a football game. These good people deserve a higher standard of behavior in our stadiums, and they will get it. Our school system has handled great challenges in the past, and I'm sure working together, we will make the changes necessary to prevent these events from ever happening again.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. All right. Mr. Superintendent, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Representative Witt, Representative Rigsby, thanks for joining us this evening. Mr. President, Board, good evening and thank you for your attendance this evening. I want to review the timeline that led up to and followed the disturbance at the Hazel Green High School versus Sparkman High School football game this past Friday. Our team of administrators and employees, along with the Madison County Sheriff's Office, have spent hours investigating this incident. We have spoken with numerous firsthand witnesses to the situation, and our goal tonight is to ensure you have all the facts we have. On August 17, Thursday night, the evening of the Hazel Green High School football jamboree against Westminster, a Sparkman football player visiting the Hazel Green campus had a verbal altercation with a Hazel Green football player at the game. The Madison County Sheriff's Office SRO promptly stopped the situation. As standard protocol, the incident was looked into further by school administrators, Madison County SROs, and the Madison County School System administrators, and it was determined that there was no credible threat. Let me be clear, no weapons were involved or shown, and this was not a physical altercation. The parents of the Hazel Green and Sparkman families were notified by the local administrations of the incident and its conclusion. August 21st through August 25th, 2023, rivalry week. Banter on social media about the rivalry increased. On August 21st, a particular post from a Sparkman student depicting a funeral coffin aimed at Hazel Green was shared on social media. The post was investigated by campus administrators and removed by the student who posted it. Social media posts continued during the week. As questionable posts were brought to our attention as administrators, they were followed up by the Madison County Sheriff's Office to determine whether they were credible threats. It was determined that questionable posts were not credible. As the football game drew closer, Madison County School System and campus administrators met with the Madison County Sheriff's Office and school resource officers to discuss security at the game. Since this is such a big game for the communities, we determined that additional school resource officers would be present. In total, 9 Sheriff's Office deputies were present inside Sparkman Stadium. Hours before the game, patrol deputies were informed about the game and placed on call if needed. A typical game has 2 to 5 SROs depending on the size of the game. August 25th, 2023, game day. Due to a heat advisory, Hazel Green and Sparkman kicked off at 8 o'clock as scheduled. The first half seemed normal. At halftime, the marching bands took the field for their performance and were followed by a special presentation of state championship rings for the Sparkman High School girls soccer team. During the presentation, the first disturbance occurred. According to deputies in the area of the south end zone, out of nowhere, students who were assembled in the area suddenly started running. Some went out the admission gates while others dispersed into the stands. Deputies, campus administrators, and district leadership quickly began to investigate the cause. A credible threat would not be determined, and students who left were not allowed back into the stadium. Several minutes later, as the teams prepared to leave the locker rooms, a second disturbance occurred in the same area. Again, deputies and administrators could not identify a credible threat. Following the second disturbance, coaches, admin, and both teams decided to stop the game, and the stadium was cleared. I want to note that some students received minor injuries during the disturbances. These injuries included scrapes, bumps, and bruises. Medical personnel at the stadium had initially told us there were no injuries reported at the stadium. During the following days, we heard from parents and students who came to us to give their accounts of the situation and reported being injured. I'd like to apologize for this error in our earlier statements. Hours have been spent investigating the disturbance on Friday evening. Countless members of the Madison County School System staff and the Sheriff's Office have worked tirelessly to look into rumors floating around social media and taking first-hand accounts of the events. there has been no evidence presented that a weapon was shown or seen by spectators. We have also determined that unless additional information is submitted after this meeting, there was not a credible threat to cause the students to disperse in the manner that they did. This brings me to a disturbing fact. The Madison County School System is not the only district to deal with such an incident at a football game on August 25th. Several communities across the state and nation also did, which has gotten the attention of governing bodies like the Alabama High School Athletic Association. While we are still in pursuit of the truth as to what caused the incident on Friday evening, we have decided to strengthen our current safety procedures, which will take effect upon athletic events moving forward. Elementary and middle school students must be accompanied by an adult to be granted entry to a game. The adult must remain in attendance in order for the child to remain at the game. Unaccompanied students who are unable to present a driver's license will be denied entry. Spectators may not be in possession of large bags or backpacks unless there is a parental or medical need. Spectators must keep walkways clear for fans, teams, and officials. Loitering is not permitted, and ticket sales will be capped. Football stadiums at 80% of the venue's capacity. Basketball gymnasium at 90% of the venue's capacity. In closing, I understand your concerns as parents and your frustrations through this situation. We are better than this, and I look forward to our district and our parents working together for the betterment of our students and our athletes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kubik. Before we move to public comment, I wanted to present to the board. Is there any questions, any feedback you want to ask Superintendent, district officials? We have Sheriff Department here. Is there any feedback you want to ask or questions? Mr. Brooks?
No, I appreciate the Sheriff's Department, though, because I appreciate y'all.
Mr. Kivik, when we finally get a little more time and get all the details together, can we have a report as a board? And for the public, I want to make sure you understand that means there'll probably be an executive session because we're talking about student safety protocols and procedures. But of course, that takes time to prepare, and we would like to have that report when you're ready, sir.
So you mentioned driver's license to enter without an adult. What about those freshmen and sophomore students? How do we account for that may not have a driver's license?
One of the things we're going to work through as we progress through this is the possibility of student pass gates, so that way we have a separate entrance for our students to go through where they can be identified accordingly. One of the things is when you have a situation, regardless of why it occurs, that you have to clear a stadium, is there's also a problem that people who do not have an access to leave that venue are now stranded and left out in parking lots. And that was one of the things that came out of this, is there was unaccompanied minors that were left behind that people had to stay with that had no way to get home, that parents had to be called to come and pick them up. So unfortunately, our freshmen are in this situation as well, that they are not legal age to drive yet. But some of the other things that we're also talking about and looking at is student IDs is another way as far as identification purposes. So there are some things to work through as far as that, and we're still meeting. We spent 3 hours working today as far as developing the protocols and starting on the process, and we will continue to work towards solving some of these situations, sir.
Can we look into increasing the numbers of SROs at all the games? Is that something we can look at?
As far as rivalry games, or as far as having a minimum number that are there?
I would definitely go with rivalry games, but what game in Madison County is not really a rival game, though?
Well, and that's, talking with our ADs, it depends on the actual game.
Yeah.
You know, they range from 2 to 5, depending on what a game is and how large of a crowd it was. And so it depends also on the school and who they're playing and, you know, what they're expecting at the gate. But yes, that's something we can talk with our SROs and our school administrators as far as coming up with some minimums and as far as if they want to exceed that, that's fine, but having some minimums in place.
So just, I think you mentioned this, but I just make sure I understand this. This is still an active investigation, and we're actively attempting to find out who did this. Is that a safe assessment to say?
That is correct, sir. And they will be disciplined and punished appropriately.
From a discipline standpoint, what classification do you think right now that will fall under? Would that fall under a class 4, class 3? Do you know, is that something that we could assess at this point?
I think it would depend on what we determine what the actual cause is and then see where it fits in our CER codes as far as how, you know, the level that it is. But considering that the disruption that it caused and the outcome and the fear and all, we're going to discipline it at the highest level we possibly can.
Yeah, I think that's wise. It will also create the conditions where this won't happen again. I think if we don't have that documented in our student code of conduct, that needs to be clearly documented and stated, that this reaches to the highest level. When you have a mass disruption like this where people are injured, people are hurting, parents are scared, I've seen the faces, I understand it, I'm a father. We need to see a student possibly consider an expulsion on this one. Wherever that leads, we need to go through that process. What's that?
The percentages, the revenue, the gates.
Yeah. You want to talk about that? Percentages, go ahead.
Just for clarification, as far as the 80% and the 90%, as far as the ticket sales,
Yes.
when you think about a game, we have capacity numbers for each stadium and how many they hold, or each gymnasium and how many they hold. And you can't sell 100% capacity because there's a lot of variables that you have to take in consideration. Let's look at a football game. You have 2 bands that maybe have 200 plus. That's 400 seats that are taken up by the band members. So you can't sell those tickets, because if you sell those tickets, that's an extra 400 bodies that don't have a place to sit. So that adds to overcrowding. So the way we got to the 80% and the 90% is when you talk about gymnasiums, you're talking about there's bands that don't attend to those. So there's a lot more available seating. The other thing is when you're talking about the employee passes and you're talking about the school passes and those type of things, those are all seats that would typically be a paid ticket, and they're not. And so we had to take that into consideration. Excuse me, by setting the 80% and the 90%, we were allowing for some factors where we would be able to allow for, you know, student supports that are in there. You know, if you have drum corps, you have cheerleading, you have the supports that go with that, and the parents that are associated with those that help with those different programs. So that's how we got to the 80 and the 90. We want to make sure that we have adequate gates so that the gates can help fund the athletic programs and not take away from the athletic programs or the booster clubs, but we want to make sure that we stay under or at those capacities totality, so that's less people that are, there's a seat for everybody and not people being able to just mill around.
And and that those percentages should be, that's just pretty, do we currently meet those percentages typically, or we exceed those capacities?
Talking with our athletic director, he informed me this afternoon that we do not, even for the big rivalry games,
Okay.
we typically are at the 80% capacity. We're the big rivalry games we're right at about maybe close to 100%.
Okay. And so this capacity makes sure everybody has a seat
Correct.
at the bleachers. Okay, okay. All right, before we go into public comments, is there any further discussion? Ms. Bates, Mr. Brooks, Mr. Byrd?
I'll just say this real quick. I saw one of the original threats, and what's hard for the sheriff's department, what's hard for the district leadership to just go off of social media posts. By the time kids are sending around Snapchats and it says there's going to be a fight tonight, by the time it's screenshot, but they screenshot it 50, 60 times and send it out again, then it gets to a Facebook post of anybody else heard there's going to be a shooting tonight at Hazel Green and Sparkman game. It started out as a fight, but by the time it was screenshot and added and sent to the next person, everything was added to it. So I just want the parents to know that it's we take. That's why we look at everything. We have to take into consideration of how it started and how it got to the end level, and that's what drove the fear up. I mean,
Sure.
It scared me, and I wasn't even going to be there, and it scared me to hear about it. But the original post was, hey, there's going to be a fight tonight.
Right.
And so I appreciate everybody that dove into that and tried to find out and figure out what the actual threat was.
And to that point, the image I saw several of those posts as well. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. But seeing the casket with the HG on it, with students standing around it, under normal circumstances, that may have been considered a typical rivalry thing to do. But given we lost a student at Hazel Green, I can see, and I certainly share in that, that's deeply insensitive, deeply insensitive. And so, I will say that kids sometimes don't see the sensitivities the same way we adults see it. And I took great offense to it, but I had to back up a little bit and look at it as a child. And it looked different for me as a child. So I will say that all these things together we considered. We addressed it. We looked at those individual situations, and we don't get it right all the time. I think we did a decent job here. Certainly there's room for improvement. Our statements, we could have improved. But I think we did a fair job of trying to do right by our students and by our families.
Never seen this behavior.
All right. Mr. Kurt. Sir, so I'll get to you in just a minute, Mr. Turner. So at this point, we have some requests to address the board. I'm going to make sure all these folks are still willing to speak. Chris Turner, okay. Travis Croxton, Ms. Armstrong, and sorry, I can't. Ms. Pascal. No? Okay. All right. All right, we're going to start from the beginning. Mr. Turner, if you could come up to the podium, I'll read a statement, and then we'll proceed.
Sure. I would like to thank the,
Okay, just 1 second,
sorry.
if you don't mind. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. In the event you wish to address the board on an issue involving the general reputation, character, physical condition, professional competence, mental health, or in some instances, job performance of an individual, or confidential student information, the board will hear your comments in executive session. If you're unsure whether your comments should be made in executive session, our board attorney's here that she can advise you. I will say during these comments, we do not go back and forth with the individuals. We'll let you speak, and we can discuss after we conclude. Okay.
all right. Thank you, Mr. Curry. I'd like to thank you for your service to the community. We appreciate everything you do for us. I would like to thank the board for the opportunity to speak to this matter. I think that I would be curious to understand the board's apparent 180-degree reversal when you think about the email that was sent out on Sunday night, which I think was inflammatory and certainly angered a lot of people in the community. And what comes to mind is I felt like there was some gaslighting going on in that email. And I'm not sure how anyone with any certainty can say that there's no weapons at a venue when there's no metal detectors or bags being searched. So I have a son that plays at Hazel Green. I was in attendance Friday night, and I will tell you what I saw. I think there's two events here. We talked about a flash mob. That's what's gotten the most press. There was also apparently an instance where the football team was sheltering in place in the locker room. And that is something that hasn't been, I think, addressed with that. And what I witnessed was Hazel Green football coaches lined shoulder to shoulder in front of the Hazel Green locker room, acting as what appeared to me as a physical barrier during this time. My wife had received 4 text messages from my son from inside the locker room stating, first one, at 10:02 p.m., they tried to push their way in. 2, they're literally waiting at the damn door trying for us. 3, coach is standing outside holding it shut. 4, y'all need to get out of here. 5, name redacted, said to tell his parents to go home. At 10:04, my wife and I received a message from our son stating, you and mom gotta leave. Only after the stadium was cleared by additional Madison County Sheriff's deputies was the Hazel Green football team allowed to leave the locker room. The path to the buses were lined with deputies, and the buses received a Madison County Sheriff's escort back to Hazel Green. And I'm sure you can understand why that email that was sent out by, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Turner.
Okay.
Mr. Croxton.
Ladies and gentlemen, board, thank you for your time. I was in attendance at the game as well, and the other thing that isn't being touched on is when our guys came off the field, they were the way that stadium is set up, and that's what I'll address truly here. If you go to Milton Frank and you go to a ball game, the kids are protected underneath the bleachers. That's where the players are at. That stadium is separated. If you're on the visitor side or you're on the home side, you can't get up and you can't be sitting there in the stands and have the opposing team's students come walking through your section in a parade trying to pick fights and start arguments with your student body that's in the bleachers, which is exactly what happened at that game. When our players came off the field, they were cussed at, they were screamed at, that they defamed Chase as they were walking off the field. And I was standing there for that, and I heard that. And I was back in the bleachers with my family, with my wife, who has a heart condition, my daughter, who is 36 weeks pregnant, and my 2-year-old grandson and my son's girlfriend, when the flash mob, as we're calling it, went off. And I'm telling you, it looked like a scene out of a zombie apocalypse movie from standing there in that stadium. Those kids took off running, and they weren't doing something stupid. They were terrified. I promise you they were terrified. And you can sit there and try and belittle that all you want to, but I'm telling you, those kids were afraid. And they were running at those bleachers, and they were jumping over fences because they were scared. They hit the gate at the back end, which is locked, by the way. They hit that gate, and they flipped that gate and tore that gate off the hinges because they were trying to get out of that place. That gate, you can't put that many people in that kind of an area and have one way out in this kind of an emergency. I mean, that's just asking for injuries, folks. What are we doing here? You know, when we came in, there was no bag check. There was no anything. I mean, you come in, you had a bunch of high school kids standing there checking your phone for your tickets. You know, and the SROs, no offense, fellas, I'm just being real. The SROs were all standing up by the gate at the end of the field where the players go on and off. They were there as a reactionary force. They were not there as a deterrent. There was nothing that was set up to make it feel like they were trying to prevent something from happening. And that big common area at the end of that field, something has got to change there.
Thank you, Mr. Croxton.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Shatika Armstrong.
First off, let me say thank you to our Madison County Sheriffs and SROs for your swift response to the events that happened on Friday, August the 25th. Although no one was seriously injured, the incident put into perspective a lot of areas where our policies and procedures within our safety and security plan need to be improved. The students spoke about threats that were being made leading up to the game. As much as we would like to think these threats are idle, we can't afford to do so. Every threat should be taken as though it's real. If that means for that particular event, enforcing a clear bag policy or metal detectors, then that's what should be done to ensure the safety of all. We shouldn't believe that just because we increase the presence of law enforcement, the threat of violence goes away. Every year for graduation, metal detectors are put in place to ensure the safety and security of all. The district has to do a better job of communicating and being transparent in a timely manner. Words on paper don't mean nearly as much as a face-to-face conversation. I would like to see our school school board members who represent the district speak to our community more frequently. Thank you to the board and our community members for allowing me to address the board.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Is there any other comments by the board, Mr. Superintendent, that we'd like to speak on?
To the point of, sorry, I forgot your name, sir. Travis. The point his point is that something that we can look at, some emergency exits somehow. I know that brings in a whole nother how kids can get in, but as an emergency, is there something we can do instead of a locked gate? Have a way that I guess can be open from the inside if there's a panic or a fire or anything. Is that something we can look at too?
We'll get with our operations officer and safety and our athletic director and our local schools and look at all the configurations of the stadiums.
Yeah. Like the gates not be used unless it's an emergency to get out. So, I mean,
We'll look at that.
okay. Thank you.
You know, and I'll thank you, Mr. Brooks. Thank you, Mr. Travis. Thank you, Mr. Turner. Ms. Armstrong, your comments are valid, but we need to review, survey our situations, make sure we're providing the safest environment for students. We all believe that, we all value that, and certainly we can do better. And so this is an opportunity for us to reevaluate, for us to look. If my memory serves me correct, we have no home games this week. So we have a little bit of time to put some emergency procedures in place. And then going forward, we can do more. So, and we will. So is there any other comments? Mr. Byrd?
I want to thank everyone who came out here, whether you spoke or not. Your concern for the safety of our students in this unique incident is both heartwarming and gives me a little bit of pat on the back that we can do better with your support. We know we're going to change things. Some people will like change, some people will embrace the change, there will be those that do not. But everything that we change is geared to doing one thing and one thing only, preventing this from ever happening again at any stadium, at any football game.
Okay. So if there's no other comments, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, I think that number of 3,500 is too low. I think we're really looking, she really should be looking at something around 20, 25.